As if this election couldn't get any crazier, about 10 days away from November 5th, we have Donald Trump actually leading in the popular vote for the first time, literally ever. You know, I've made videos saying, well, he's never been within a point. He's never been within zero point 0.5 percentage points of Harris. He's never been within a tie. Now he's actually winning the popular vote in the mainstream media polls, which again are super skewed towards the left. Now let's get down to exactly why that even is the case and why we need to be optimistic as, again, I'm biased, I'm a Trump supporter, for this election prospect. Now look at this really beautiful configuration of data. As you can see here, you'll notice that Joe Biden's presidential approval is at a measly negative 15.8 percentage points. Then beyond that, obviously, you have the direction of the country. And again, people in the multitudes are saying that 37.1% in the negative would agree that the country is in a wrong track again. So when you have it this way, you'll notice that the dynamic of the race has been, even if not concretely, but still implicitly, that Kamala Harris is a rerun of the Joe Biden campaign. And even if not that, she's still a person that was so tightly linked with Joe Biden that it's really hard to separate it, really, when you're a person undecided in the middle of this election. To be quite clear, obviously, most Democrats will still win for Harris. You see all the red here. Yeah, Trump is winning in every single swing state. He is winning the popular vote as of right now. But keep in mind, obviously, that more than 40% of the country will end up voting for Harris. And you can complain in the comments, and trust you, I see you guys all day saying, well, how come it's so close between Kamala, who's an incompetent DEI politician for all intents and purposes, and Donald Trump, who seems to be right on most issues, especially as confirmed by most people, hence why he's most likely going to win the popular vote come November 5th. But in 10 days, we'll see if I'm right. Anyway, if you look at the top battlegrounds, again, if you look towards the middle center of the screen here, you'll notice that, again, the top battlegrounds, all 7 of these, which include Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia, have Trump winning by a cumulative amount of 0.9 points. And so actually what this really proves is that the states, the battleground states, are going to vote more Republican to the right of the country, which the country is indicating either a tie at worst for Trump or a slight Trump W in the popular vote. Now, let's contrast this, obviously, with the election in 2020. As you can see here, obviously, Joe Biden won this election officially by 4.5 percentage points. Now, this is interesting for a couple of different reasons, as Trump was less than a percentage point away from winning Wisconsin. He won North Carolina already in 2020, but you see that Georgia was super close. You'll see that Arizona was super close by 0.3. And so generally speaking, when Trump is either tied or winning the popular vote like he's projected to win it right now, it would prove to be that he'd probably move the popular vote, which is for Biden by 4.6 in 4 years ago, to most likely, obviously, like a tied electorate. So you'd be adding about 5 percentage points to all the swing states. Well, what that means, basically, is that he'd be winning all 7 of these easily, as the most leftist state out of all the 7 ones it's going to be Michigan, which has a margin of 2.8. And so it's pretty clear to me that if anything, we have to be looking at the states that are a little more fringe, as he's already winning the ones that are already conclusively towards the purple end of the spectrum. So Virginia, Trump lost by 10.1. In 2016, he lost it by about 5, and Romney also lost it by a few points to Barack Hussein Obama. So let's see what Virginia's looking like. So when we look at the cumulative results out of Virginia, you'll notice that Harris is up by 6.2. And so while that might not seem like it's close for Trump to win, it also does comport with the fact that, again, he is performing 4 to 5 points better than he did in 2020, which is important for a multitude of reasons, obviously, because, again, if you were to add 4 to 5 percentage points in all the swing states, he wins the electoral vote. Now, the popular vote is what is in question, plus what other states, aside from the 7 I already mentioned, including Nevada, for instance, how does that comport with the rest of the map? And so when you look at this, you'll notice instantly almost that Harris is actually losing support. You see the polls in the past 2 months has been Harris plus 7, plus 6, plus 11, plus 11, plus 6, plus 6. And then most recently, Quantus Insights has a poll where Harris is winning by only 1 percentage point. Now, You can see the illustration right here pretty clearly. You'll notice that again, this poll was done in the last week. And so this is pretty recent. And so it does have, it being a very, very, very close toss up with Harris, again, only having a lead of 1. Now, it doesn't mean that Trump will lead Virginia. In fact, it's pretty much an uphill battle for him to do so. Because obviously, the demography of Virginia has been very much atrophying in support for the Republican Party over the past 15 years, given the influx of a suburban exileship, really, of the D.C. metropolitan area. And, obviously these people trickle down to Fairfax County, Loudoun County, Alexandria, Virginia, places like this. And so it does make the support in Virginia pretty hard. And so while you had people like George Bush win the state 20 years ago, and you had people like Romney very fiercely competitive in the state, kind of like how Pennsylvania is now for Republicans, it does seem pretty evident to me that while, again, Trump might not even win Virginia, him closing the actual margin is actually really indicative of the rest of the country. Now, to be clear, it's not the end-all be-all of, again, what the electoral votes for Virginia go down to, which, again, is about 13. The question is that, of course, how the election night works on November 5th is that Eastern Seaboard states and counties will predict and, in fact, count their votes prior to the other ones by an order of magnitude of up to 3 hours. And so for that reason, obviously, when you're looking at the election night, if Trump does pretty well in Virginia, all things being considered, it's highly predictive of the other swing states, obviously. And so while, again, in a state, in a poll that is, let's say, more Republican leaning, obviously, and funded by Republicans even, we'll even give him that. Okay, well, him losing it by only 1 is enough to really indicate that Trump is most likely going to win the other states. And so that's the only reason why I include that. Now, a Democrat cope nowadays, and honestly, it's so delicious to see these absolute sick puppies just get their recompense. And again, this is 10 days prior to the election. Just imagine how sweet their tears will be in less than 2 weeks. Oh my gosh, I feel like a complete sadist, but here we are. Anyway, so if you look at the polling as of the last few weeks, you'll notice that, again, Trump is leading ever so slightly over Harris, which is brilliant. I mean, look at this comparative example. In 2016, this day 2016, Hillary Clinton, who is really just like the white Kamala in this case, was leading Donald Trump by 5.4. Again, she lost at over 3 percentage points relative to that to November 8th or whatever it was in 2016. Also, you look at 2020, Biden was leading Donald Trump by 7.8 percentage points. And so you can see here that obviously they were wrong 2 times in a row. So, I mean, the Democrats are begging the question of, honestly, are the polls not biased, number 1? And then 2, are in fact biased towards Donald Trump, which, again, is ridiculous because, again, the polls have Trump not only winning all the swing states, but also winning the popular vote right now. So for a Democrat to cope about this, they would have to say that, well, the polls are biased towards Trump. Now, you tell me with a straight face why New York Times, CNN, Wall Street Journal, Morning Consult, Forbes, Harris X, Reuters, Ipsos, CNBC, ABC, USA Today, etc. are all pro-Trump. It literally doesn't make sense, buddy. It seems more like these liberals that have been pushing fake polls this whole time are realizing that the writing is on the wall, and the American public is not illiterate by a majority. So obviously they need to temper expectations, say, oh, it's a tight race, well, it's a toss-up. Trump might be winning this thing. That's why they're actually shifting towards a Republican area, not because they're partial to Donald Trump. In fact, most media isn't. And so, anyway, just rubbing it in for the liberals that are not watching this, but the YouTubers, my contemporaries, frankly, sick people. But anyway, they're very wrong. So if you look at this, you'll see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pro-Harris polls. And you see with the Republican end, you see that Trump's leading in the popular vote by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different ones. Now, if you look at the ties, there's 4 ties. And so what this means is that there's a equal, basically, amount of Trump and Kamala winning the popular vote. But because Trump is up in this aggregate, proves that the actual Trump wins in the popular vote, those 4 or 5 different polls, are having him at a higher margin than even the Harris ones. And again, these are done by like 80 or 90% liberal-leaning pollsters that oversample white college-educated people and Biden voters from 2020. As we know, we do also have some good news. We can't really run out of W's, okay? You're going to get tired of winning until we actually win the election. But anyway, Jeff Bezos apparently killed the Washington Post endorsement for Kamala Harris per CNBC. So again, fake news reporting it, so I'll believe it in the case that it makes them look bad. So Jeff Bezos, who again is not a Trump appreciator by any means, is seeing the writing on the walls like I've been telling you guys for weeks and even months at this point. And so now Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, basically is saying, you know what? And he owns the Washington Post, by the way. he's telling them that, they will not endorse anybody in this election, which again is really, really, really bad because it's like the equivalent of if Fox News or Newsmax or OAN or whatever, it's as if those companies said, well, we're not endorsing anybody, which obviously they're leaning towards Trump anyway. And so it's pretty indicative of, again, it's like the Teamsters problem where, again, most people are saying, well, actually, Trump is more favored. And so, even the liberals that are running it are like, okay, well, we cannot really stick out our neck for somebody who's going to lose, like Kamala Harris. So this is another big W for Donald Trump, high key. Now that we're about 10 minutes in, comment down below if you have any disagreements as to my complete level of just complete blind optimism. And it's not blind, it's an educated guess, frankly. I'm a nerd. I know what I'm doing. Also, subscribe if you haven't yet. Obviously, we're going to do a lot of more election content for the next several days. But beyond that, we're going to diversify the content coming in November. And also, like the video as that gets it out there in the algorithm. But now that we're 10 minutes in, let me do a rapid fire amount of news for you guys because obviously I got a Halloween party to be at. But tonight, let's actually see what the update is. Okay, so we already brushed on Virginia, but let's also get into the national early vote as obviously this is looking really, really, really good for Donald Trump. And I actually have an early vote anecdote for my university at in southern Arizona, where they're only getting 100 voters per day to vote in person, which is actually really low given the fact that my university has about 50,000 students. But anyway, national early vote has the 2020 amount of Democrats leading it by about 15 percentage points, whereas when you look at 2024, you'll notice that Democrats are only leading the early vote by 2 percentage points. Now, there's a couple different reasons for this. Number one, Republicans, as compared to 2020, are a lot more interested in voting early and voting via absentee and by mail versus on the day of the election itself. Now, the reason why this is a good thing, even if you might say it cannibalizes Republican support, is because those are banked votes. There's two things. So with banked votes, number one, you're saving the Trump campaign the effort of knocking on doors of people that already voted, which saves them money, which obviously Democrats outspend Republicans. So saving money actually disproportionately helps the Republican Party. But also keep in mind that it makes it so that they know what door to knock on, because again, it's about who already turned out, because if you already voted, why give you more ads, more reasons to vote? I mean, don't waste that money. Don't waste that ink or toner. But also, it makes it so that they know exactly what percentage you need on election day to actually win the presidential election. So this is all good news. Also, third thing, notice that these voters are not going to be the people voting on election day. Now, this sounds somewhat oxymoronic. You might say, well, if Republicans are doing better in the early vote, that must mean that, on election day itself, the Democrats are going to win. No. What really is going on is that low propensity voters, again, people that voted maybe one time in the past 20 years, are mailing their vote in because, again, it takes less effort than actually waiting in line for several minutes, if not hours. And so realistically, the majority of these new voters are exactly that, but new voters that are, again, infrequent, low propensity voters, those types that came out, the blue collar welders and whatnot in Wisconsin, etc. So these are actually not really eating into the voter turnout for election day itself. If you remember in 2020, they said a red mirage would appear in the mass media. Well, what that really meant was that, again, most hard workers or whatever else, people that are diehard Trump Republicans will come out and swamp the vote, in this case, by a ton in election day. But the Democrats that don't really care because Joe Biden was a boring candidate 4 years ago and is not now a boring candidate, but a candidate that's not in the running. And in fact, the brain not, I mean, it's not really running anymore. So anyway, they came out just haphazardly. And I think we're doing the same thing as a Republican Party, where, again, we're getting early voters that are low propensity saying, well, you know what? The economy sucks. Again, not the biggest Trump fan, but, you just want stability back in your life. And so economically, you can see why that really logically comports to reality. And so for that reason, you can see that Republicans are really not cannibalizing support at all. So we're just kind of addressing that liberal cope. Another gorgeous piece of data, and again, bear with me as I just gorge all over these Twitter bookmarks. These are so good. Okay, so anyway, FiveThirtyEight, which again is the aggregator I use for the politics, somewhat that with Real Clear Politics anyway. So that's where you get the polls from. Okay, so presidential election forecast throughout the year. So if you look at 2012, Obama versus Romney, you had FiveThirtyEight, again, Nate Silver, balding, loser. Anyway, that guy said that Obama had a 91% chance of beating Romney, who again had a 9% chance. That turned out to be pretty pretty true. Again, that's only because he mostly based his prediction model over just getting internal polls from a guy like David Plouffe like 12 years ago, and that's how he has his clout now. Anyway, addressing it to 2016. Now, the numbers are different, as Clinton was at 71% odds of winning, which is huge, and then Trump had a measly 27. Now, again, look how that worked out for the Democrats. Now, look at 2020. Biden at an 89%, Trump at a 10%. Again, when you look at the results here, yeah, Biden won technically, whatever, he's the president, but even if there were no shenanigans, which again is a stupid thing to believe, you'll notice that again, Wisconsin super close. Pennsylvania 1.2 points for Biden. Georgia super close. Arizona super close. So to say Biden had a 90% chance of winning, given the results, is asinine. If anything, you would have said Biden has a 55% chance of winning, and that would have been more accurate. Okay, that's something that I would have said even in high school 4 years ago. Now, look at this. In 2020, that result was super off. In fact, I honestly believe that the polls were worse in 2020 than they were in 2016. Now, people get away with it now that, in 2020 they were off, but Biden won anyway. And it's like, well, bro, if you thought Biden was winning by like 10 points in Wisconsin and he ended up winning by 0.6 officially, that is less accurate than the Trump MAGA occultist that had Trump winning by 1%. So let's get that fact straight. But anyway, 2024, you'll see that Trump was winning, is. Okay, sorry. It's like I'm already post-election inauguration, I'm in there. But anyway, Trump 53% over Kamala's 47. So think about that. Nate Silver, who again is a liberal by all means. I mean, liberal with the hair loss too. I mean, he's just letting that go. But anyway, so you'll see this. And obviously, yeah, Trump is winning for the first time out of these 4 elections. So again, 2012, 16, 20, and 24, they have the Republican up by 6 points. Again, the Republican won in 16 and 24. Remember, in 2016, he was off by 44 percentage points in the odds. And now Nate Silver is actually having Trump win. And again, that's not he's not happy with that result. And so that's really good news for the GOP. Let's look into the early vote as well. If you see here, you'll notice that in North Carolina in 2020, whites outpaced blacks by 47 percentage points. In 2024, whites outpaced black voters by 58, and so that's a plus 11 of the white vote. Now, the reason why that's important, obviously, is because the vast majority of black voters will vote for Kamala Harris. Again, her support, especially among young black men under under the ages of 35, is really atrophying. But generally, even with that in mind, Trump will still lose the black vote, obviously. And so for the black vote and the turnout to go down by over 10 is actually a really good sign for the former president as well. Okay, and to really wrap up the election talk for tonight, you'll look at this, okay? So let's talk elections, which is one of the bigger, I wouldn't say grifters. He's probably not making that much money, but this guy is one of these, he goes to Harvard. He's supposed to be this really smart guy my age. Okay, LTE here has 221,000 subscribers, and so they're constantly getting fed pro-Kamala brat, sort of information that, oh, Kamala's going to win here. Kamala's going to flip Florida. Kamala's going to win North Carolina. All this sort of BS. Okay. This guy, again, Harvard student, so he's supposed to be so smart. He's predicting Donald Trump to win by 278 electoral votes to Kamala's 260. Again, this is so delicious. This guy, again, has gotten millions of views on the back of saying Kamala will win, and that even Biden wouldn't get destroyed by Trump, which again, how wrong was he? Well, guess what? Look at this. He has Donald Trump winning North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. Did I say Wisconsin already? I mean, think about it. A literal guy who, if he has Trump winning in his videos, will get a ton of hate from his own crowd, is predicting Trump will win. Isn't that so delicious, boys and girls? But anyways, like I said before, like the video if you haven't yet, subscribe if you haven't yet, and comment down below, baby. So anyways, I'll see y'all in the next one. Adios.